Okay. Oh, guys, I'm sorry I'm not here. Boy, I caught a crummy cold, and I figured just one day of rest would be good for me. So one of the things I want to do is go back through the lesson that we did on Friday. So hopefully you've seen the answers, and you've helped each other out with solutions. Remember, no work, no credit. But I want to go through this lesson again with you. So today's date, 4/18. So again, our objective is solving radical equations. So today we're going to see some of the more difficult ones, but we can do it because we're smart. And if we're not smart, we have smart people around us, but we can do it. I have faith in all of us, okay? So it says be careful of extraneous solutions. So sometimes answers won't work, and that's when we get negative answers or answers that can make negative squares. We can't have negatives. We have to be careful of. Sometimes it can be a negative. I think you saw in your warm-up today. I'll show you. So sometimes you can have negatives. I think we saw in our warm-up today you got a -1. But the -1 will actually work because you put the -1 in, and -1 plus 1 is 0. So you're okay. And the -1 in here is okay because with -1 plus 1 is 0. So sometimes negatives will be okay, but sometimes they can't. So let's take a look at it. Okay, example 1, the more difficult ones. First thing I'm going to do is square both sides to get rid of the square root. So I do the opposite operation. The opposite operation of a square root would be to square, and I square both sides. All right, well, I have to be careful now. This is not just x minus 6, but x minus 6 squared is x minus 6 times another x minus 6, because something squared is multiplied to itself. On the right-hand side, the square cancels the square root, and you're just left with 3x. All right, a little bit of algebra now, but we're good at algebra. I'm going to FOIL. All right, I'm going to get an x squared minus 6x minus 6x plus 36. And again, if I get going too fast, just politely ask the substitute to pause the video. All right, I can combine these two terms. I have an x squared minus a 12x plus 36 equals 3x. Looks to me like I'm going to probably need to factor and solve, so I'm going to get everything on the other side. So I'm going to go minus 3x minus 3x, so I can factor, set it equal to 0. I'll have x squared minus 15x plus 36 equals 0. Okay, now, let's see, to factor. Let's see, what times what makes 36? Well, I don't know. How about 12 and 3? 12 and 3 sounds good because I can get a 15. How about a 12 and a 3? X minus 12, x minus 3 equals 0. Okay, that looks pretty good. And when I solve my little mini equations, I will get x equals 12 and x equals 3. Now the 3 you have to be careful on, okay? This is where you have to check for that extraneous solution, because you take the 3 and plug it in for x into the original equation. So the original equation would have a 3 minus 6 equals the square root of 3 times 3. But here's our problem. -3 does not equal the square root of 9, which is 3. Does not equal. So here's an example of throwing out an extraneous solution. Okay? We'll keep the 12. We'll keep 12. 12 is good. We'll get positive answers. We'll throw out the 3. Okay. Sliding the paper up. All right, number 2 is actually not that bad. I'm just going to square both sides. Both sides, because if I square both sides, the square cancels the square root. It becomes a pretty easy problem at this point. Square cancels square root. I'm just left with a 4x plus 1. The square cancels square root. I'm just left with an x plus 10. I'm just going to solve. I'll go minus x. Minus x. I get a 3x plus 1 equals 10. Minus 1, minus 1, 3x equals 9, divide by 3, and x equals 3. I'm pretty sure that solution's okay. I get a 13 square root of 13, I get a 13 square root of 13, makes them equal, we're okay. That answer is just fabulous. All right? Okay, example 3. Well, I liked what I did on example 2. It made it really easy because I had a square root equal to square root. So I think I'll do the same thing with example 3. What I'm going to do is literally take this entire term and bring it to the other side. Well, if it's subtract this term, subtract the cube root of x plus 1, I'll just add it to bring it to the other side. All right. So cube root of 2x minus 5 is equal to, well, add it, cube root of 8x plus 1. Oh, by the way, cube roots can be negative. Cube roots can be negative. Yes, negatives are okay. Yes, negatives are okay. Because you can have a negative times a negative times a negative. All right, back to solving this problem. So I'm not worried about extraneous solutions, but anyway, back to solving. Well, if I want to do the opposite operation of a cube root, I would just simply cube both sides. All right, that seems pretty easy. Cube it, cube it. All right, the cube cancels the cube root. I'm just left with the next 2x minus 5. Cube root cancels out the cube, and I'm just left with an 8x plus 1. All right, pretty simple to solve now. Basic algebra, which we're good at. So I'll go minus 2x, minus 2x, negative 5 equals a 6x plus 1, minus 1, negative 6 equals 6x, divide by 6, divide by 6. X equals negative 1, but that's no big deal. I don't mind if it's negative because it can be. Let's see. We'd have negative 8 plus 1, cube root of negative 7. Cube root of negative 7 is fine. Negative 2 be negative 7. Cube root of negative 7 is fine. You can do that. Okay, there's my answer. All right, let's turn the paper. See what else we have in store. All right. Okay, the inequalities. Now we have to be careful with inequalities because one of the things I know for sure is that the square root of x plus 1 cannot be 0. Can't be negative. Can't be negative. I know that for sure. This part right here can't be negative. It can be negative 1, so x can be negative 1. X can equal negative 1, but it can't be any smaller than negative 1. If x were negative 2, right here, you just think about it. If x were negative 2, it'd have negative 2 plus 1. Negative 2 plus 1 is a negative 1. You can't do that. Okay, so with inequalities, you have to be careful. So one of the things I know for sure on this problem is x has to be greater than or equal to negative 1. Okay, I know that's part of my answer. I'm going to circle that. Okay. Now, how about the rest? Well, we'll just solve the rest. So if I solve the rest, I'll divide by 7 first. Divide by 7. The square root of x plus 1 equals 9/7. I need to solve this, so I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Square of both sides. I will get a x plus 1. In a sense is less than, I'll put the less than back in, 81/64. I'll subtract 1, x is less than, well, what? Hold on, 81/64. Well, let's do little fractions. Let's do some fractions. The number 1 is the same thing as, a 64/64. Oh, fractions, Mr. Davies. I don't do fractions, you guys say, but yeah, we can do fractions. We can do fractions. Let's see. Oh, what's 81 minus 64? Let's see, this is at 17. Let's see, 81 minus 64. You have 17, which is 17/64. Okay? So my answer has to be in between negative 1 and 17/64. Now this is kind of a fun problem because it can be greater than or equal. Well, no, it can't be because then, yeah, it can. Yeah, greater than or equal to negative 1, but it has to be less than 17/64. So I would write it like this. Negative 1 is less than or equal to x, which is less than 17/64. So there's the whole answer. A little bit more thought-provoking. I don't mind that. We can do it. We're smart. All right, you ready for number 5? This is like an extra credit problem. This is one of those that's going to challenge us. I like that. I've got so many smart kids in here that a challenge problem is great. Why is it a challenge problem? Well, if I square both sides, then I'm going to have to write this twice. If I square both sides, I'll have to write 2 minus the square root of x twice. let you catch up. So I squared both sides. The square canceled the square root, but on the right-hand side, I have a 2 minus the square root of x, but I have to write it twice because it's times itself. Okay, this becomes a challenging problem because we're going to have to FOIL this. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times a negative square root of x is a negative 2 square roots of x. Negative x times negative 2 is going to, or times 2 is a negative 2 square roots of x. Negative x times negative x and positive square root of x squared. All right. Let's see what kind of mess I've created now. All right. Let's see. I'll have an x plus 2 equals. Let's see. This will be a 4 minus these two. We can combine these two. They're the same. We'll get a minus 4 square roots of x plus, well, the square root of x squared is x. All right, let's see what else we got now. Okay, so I'm going to bring things over. So if I go minus x, kind of like that. Minus 4, I'll have a negative 2 equals a negative 4 square roots of x. Divide by negative 4, divide by negative 4, and I'll have a positive 1/2. Good thing it's positive. Equals the square root of x. I'll finish this up by squaring both sides. Because of the square, we'll get rid of the square root. And so I'll have a 1/4 equals x. Wow, that was a hard problem. Okay, now ignore this because we did the evens on Friday. We're going to do the odds. We're going to go 1, 2, I think it's 13, 125, 126, no, 15. So it's 125, 126, 1 to 15 odd. Try and get this done, you guys. Hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. I'd like to take some rest and get better. If you get done early, you can work on your balloons, okay? Hopefully we'll get a day where we can launch them. Bye. Hopefully I'll see you tomorrow.